Hamas leaders were always planning a military strike of this kind, and they just let Islamic Jihad do the battling in the meantime, while they look like the more civilized, more sophisticated ones and the better negotiators.
Tell us more then about this man Sinwar and who he is. He served 22 years in jail, didn't he, over the abduction and killing of 2 Israeli soldiers and 4 Palestinians that he considered collaborators. He's got a long history.
Yeah, well, Sinwar's whole career basically has been involved in militant Palestinian politics, and he basically got involved with Hamas basically from the very beginning when Sheikh Yassin formed the organization in the late 1980s. And he did spend the better part of 2 decades in prison before he was released in a prisoner exchange with more than 1,000 other Palestinians for Gilad Shalit. And over the past several years, he's become the leader of Hamas's military wing.
Okay, now he was elected Hamas leader in 2017. At that point, supposedly advocating peaceful popular resistance, that was thrown aside, and he was re-elected in 2021, survived an assassination attempt, and he's the man that we see, or most of us have not seen here today. Assess his importance to this crisis, to Hamas, militarily and politically.
Well, Sinwar is a very crafty political figure because in 2017, he did pivot a little bit towards peaceful resistance. He actually announced that in an interview in Al Jazeera in 2018. And that was along the lines of what Khalid Mashal was trying to push, where he watered down the original Hamas charter, which called for the annihilation of Israel and even appeared to be open in the future to some kind of a 2-state solution or some kind of a truce with the Israelis. But over the past few years, especially since 2021, when he had the assassination attempt, he's become much more militant. How we really saw that, for example, in his influence at the Hamas-Fatah reconciliation meetings in Egypt several months ago, where he warned that this was the golden opportunity to strike for the Palestinian resistance. Israel is divided, the reservists are rebelling, let's strike. And now, with October 7th and since then, he's been a vital figure for Hamas's military resistance towards Israel.
So then he would have been central, Samuel, to the horror of October the 7th, those murders and attacks and abductions.
Well, absolutely. He was one of the central figures in that, and that reflected his shift away from that peaceful resistance. So that whole peaceful resistance talk may have been a facade. Another Hamas leader in Beirut, Ali Baraka, basically said that the Hamas leaders were always planning a military strike of this kind, and they just let Islamic Jihad do the battling in the meantime, while they looked like the more civilized, more sophisticated ones and the better negotiators, and then they struck. So I think that Sinwar was probably planning this ever since the assassination attempt in 2021, and then October 7th was a horrific moment to strike, alongside Mohammed Deif and some others, but he was the main figure.
And so how big a blow would it be to Hamas? How big a success for Israel if this man were to be captured or killed?
Well, I mean, we've seen, obviously, over the past several days, Israel announcing numerous other lower-level commanders within Hamas who have been assassinated, including one yesterday who was involved in numerous activities during the 1990s. But nobody of Sinwar's stature or scale has been taken out by the Israelis yet. So I think that losing him would be a major, major loss. Obviously, Hamas is a movement that's got a hierarchy of leadership, and it will not be leaderless. We've still got Deif, who was crucial to the October 7th events running around. But it would be a major loss.
So he's said now, isn't he, by the Israel Defense Force, to be cornered, to be trapped in a bunker. Do you consider it then inevitable that he will be caught?
Well, I think that obviously there's a lot of complications associated with the Israeli movement from an incursion into Gaza City into an outright capture of it. So they've encircled it. They're making some incursions. But they need to figure out how to capture it. And there's the Gaza Metro, right? And who knows the Gaza Metro better than Sinwar? Sinwar himself boasted in 2021 that the Israelis were bragging about destroying 100 kilometers of tunnels. Actually, we've got 500 kilometers. So it really depends on how much the Israeli intelligence services and surveillance have mapped out the tunnels to be able to find him. I think that Sinwar is a bit of a disappearing act, not responding to communications, just like your previous guest said, is part of a survival strategy for him.